Hey everybody, welcome back to AJ Studio Pro. Today I want to go over a little bit more photo editing tips and tricks that I like to do to really bring out a photo. Let's get into Photoshop. As you can see here, I have a photo from the George Washington graduation I took earlier this summer. The first thing I always like to do is with Command or Control J, create a duplicate layer, make sure the initial layer is selected. By default for me, it's always titled background, and then you can rename your layer if you want to whatever you want. I'll call it duplicate. Again, it doesn't matter. And so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to brighten up the lips. That's what a lot of people ask me to do, is sort of to highlight the lips. Usually with men, you want to highlight the chin, and then with ladies, you like to highlight the eyes and the lips. I like to say Brad Pitt's got the jaw, and Angelina's got the lips, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a mask. In our duplicate layer, we do that by clicking the Add Vector Mask button. It should be next to the FX icon. And then we are going to mask out the lips. So we are going to do this by doing Command or Control I if you're on Windows. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press backslash, and that's going to show me my mask selection. So red means it's not showing and white means it is showing. And so I need to paint my selection, or what I want to mask, in white. That's why I inverted it, because there's much more to hide than there is to show. And I'm going to paint the lips. And again, I can take as much time as I want or as little time as I want. I can press minus to make my brush key smaller, and I press minus to make my brush smaller, and plus to make my brush bigger. And again, I can spend as much time fine-tuning this as I want. For the sake of this tutorial, that will be good enough. And then I'm going to go over to her lips, and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. And again, if you're not perfect, I'm going to show you a little trick that saves you a little bit of time. But again, in Photoshop, you can be as precise or as imprecise as you would like. So again, it kind of looks like they have black lips, but don't worry, it's just the mask bleeding through. And make sure when you're painting, the mask layer is selected. So you can see that I have the mask layer selected in my layers panel here, the black box. So now when I press backslash here, there you can see there's no changes. I can do Command minus to zoom out, or I can do Command 0 to zoom out completely. And so even though we haven't done anything, I can now add an adjustment layer. And the adjustment layer we're going to add is hue saturation 1, and I'm going to increase the saturation. But if you notice here, the saturation is being increased on everything. It looks really weird, and I made it really big and really small to highlight what saturation can do to ruin a picture. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a clipping mask. And so what that does is I press this button with the arrow sign down and a square, and what that does is it clips this layer only to the layer below it, which is our mask layer. So now if we look at those lips here, it will only add the hue adjustment to those lips, and that's what we want here. So we can bring out the lips a little bit. So this is our before and this is our after, and that's what I like. So the lips are really illuminated. Again, because we've made these minor changes, at any time we can go and adjust the lips. We can make them whiter, we can make them a little bit darker, and again, we can look at the before and we can look at the after. So I do like that. Their eyes are really dark. A lot of times I like to brighten up the eyes, but in this case, it can be very difficult sometimes. And now another thing we're going to do here is we're going to make a blank layer on top of this. I'm going to make a blank layer by doing the create a new layer button. It's a plus sign with on top of a square here. And what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of a little bit of acne or blotchiness in the skin. And we can do that by pressing the J key with the spot healing brush tool. Make sure the spot healing brush tool is selected and not the other one, the healing brush tool. And then you want to simply brush over the layers you'd like to smooth out. If you see any mistakes, what it sometimes does is it tries to take pixels that are close to the brush size, brush area, and mix them in. But if you get a kind of brushing effect you don't like, please press Control Command Z. Get used to pressing that button. That's my favorite button, along with the delete key. Taking away is just as important as adding sometimes. And again, if you're satisfied with it, you can keep on brushing and make their skin a little bit more clear. Again, I'm going to get a little bit of this left cheek here. I guess left cheek from my perspective. And see, I didn't like that change, how that looks. So I'm going to do Command Z to bring it out. And there we go right here. And I'll do that one last. And it's okay for a little bit. And then her forehead has a little bit of action going on here. So we're going to make sure to block that out here. Help her out a little bit. And again, it's up to your discretion how much you want to try. Now, sometimes I'm using the healing brush tool and it's not working. We're going to show another solution to dealing with blotchy skin in a second here. But I'm going to try to get other areas here. You see, it's not working sometimes when I press it against other acne. One thing I can do is I can make it smaller here and see how it does. And there's one stray hair here, so it may mess it up a little bit, but it seems to be doing okay. There we go. Okay. So making it smaller worked, and we have one area. We're going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to try to copy this whole area here and see what happens. We didn't like that. Usually it can get a little out of hand when you try to brush over a big area, but if you brush over a big area, you want to hold it down and see what it will do. Actually, I kind of like that. And there we go. Now, the important thing is we did this on a brand new layer, so if you ever want to get rid of it, you can just press E for the eraser tool and erase any of the brushing you did. So that's the beautiful thing about it, is we are making compounded changes that we can easily reverse, and we're layering them so that each change is saved in the photo. So if you ever wanted to go back and either make an additional change or delete that change, it'll be very easy to do so here, okay? So now we have the before and we have the after. So looking good for not that much work here. Okay, so I'm going to press Command or Control 0. So again, we can see what we've got here. We've got the lips done, and yeah, we've got the acne looking pretty good here. Oh, we've got the foreheads cleared up a little bit. And then the last thing we're going to do for the sake of this tutorial is we are going to go to Filter, and we are going to go to Camera Raw Filter. It's also Command Shift A, and this gives us the usual filters about it. And this is my first time on my Mac here. Actually, this is a good point here. This is something I like to do before my photos. I made a mistake, but I'm going to show you guys this. I'm going to go back to my photo here. And when you noticed I loaded Camera Raw Filter and exit out for a second, it only showed the eyes or this top layer here. And so what we want to do is for this layer, is for all the layers combined, we want to merge all of them together into a new layer, and we can do that with Command Shift Option E, or simply Control Shift Alt E. And what that will do is merge all the layers below it into a new layer. And so that way, when I go into Camera Raw Filter, I'll use Command Shift A this time, it now shows the whole filter with all the merged changes. So the foreheads are clear and the lips are looking a little bit nicer. Again, we didn't want to light up the lips so that they were oversaturated and so it looks very obviously photoshopped. The first thing I like to do in Camera Raw Filter is press the auto button and see what that does. I'm going to zoom in here so we can look at taking the auto off and taking the auto on. And I like what it does with the exposure there. It opens it up. And again, there are so many settings in here. It takes a little bit while to go over, but you can look at the vibrance and the saturation. And what I also like to do here is I like to go to the grain, and I think that adds a little bit of detail, and add, grain about, 0 through 5 is good. You don't want to add too much or else it will start looking like that. And give it a little bit of detail there, so highlight the lips there. And then we can also add a little bit of sharpening. And then if you want to do anything specific to the color, there are so many ways to change the color here. So first of all, you can mess with the highlights here. That's the very bright colors, the lights, the whites here, and we'll just brighten up. There's a lot of white in this selection, so you don't need to do much there. And then you can mess with the darks. Going to bring out anything. Their eyes and hair are very dark, so I want to bring up those any way I can. Yeah, show that out. So then zoom out, and so now we have the before and after. I'll show that. Now I can press OK, and it will simply apply this filter here. And so that's applied to layer 2. So here we go, we have the before. I can see go and select the first layer. That's why I duplicated, so we can see the before. And I can select Option on the Mac or Alt, and then click that layer to just show that one. You see the eyeball right next to the background layer. And then I can click it again to show all the layers, so you can see the after and you can see the before. So I think that's a pretty good job highlighting the lips, brushing up the skin a little bit, and giving the photo some punch. I hope you guys like this video, and thanks for watching.